Hello and welcome to Ladies Corner with T. Tonight I'm excited because she's one of us. She's an author from Edmonton, and she's coming on to talk to us about her books, her passion for writing, and what keeps her going in this season of pandemic. So don't go away. This is Ladies Corner with T, and we've got Eileen Omosa right after this. Hey, this is Ladies Corner with T, and we've got Eileen Omosa. She's an author from Edmonton joining us tonight. Hi, Eileen. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hello, T. Thank you for having me.
I mean, I've got your CV here. It's sorry, your bio here. It's kind of extensive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience, describing what you do, and describing yourself and what you do.
Okay, thank you. As you've all heard, my name is Eileen Omosa. I'm trained as a researcher, a sociologist first before I narrowed down and became a researcher in the social sciences. So before I came to Canada, I worked within countries of Africa. Originally, I come from Kenya. I worked within countries of Africa in the natural resource management sector. And part of the work that I did was to train local communities on how to collaborate, manage their resources to be able to provide for their families. So when I came to Canada after a few years of going for my studies and working, an idea came to mind like, okay, we've always been told as ladies, go to school and your life will become almost perfect. You know, once you have an education, you have a job. But then an idea came to mind in the form of a question like, but we are never told that you'll still be expected to balance your career and your life at home, you know, expectations as an African girl or an African woman. So based on that, I started writing novels where I use fictional characters to look at the lives of African girls and African women who've gone to school, who have a career, but still, how do they balance expectations from their career, and also when they go back home to their houses, they are expected to lead a certain way of life as African girls or African women. So that's where the idea came from. And to date, I have published 9 novels looking at different aspects of the African girl. The one who has completed university education, how do they get into employment? How do they get into marriage? And then I have another set of books where I look at what happens to the African girls who don't make it through to university. Maybe they get to high school, complete high school, but then let's say somebody gets a baby, what happens to them? Because they still have that ambition of, you know, wanting to get into a career. So I wrote a book also looking at that. And I also write books looking at people immigrated from countries in Africa, especially for the young people? How do they navigate life in their new countries?
Eileen, you've spoken so well, and you're able to write all those books primarily because you're a sociologist. You look at how we evolve in our societies, and you want to put a stamp on where we are in your novels. I get that. You've written 9 novels you described, and some of it are here on Amazon. Dare to Marry Billionaire's Daughter, The Family Between Us, An Immigrant's Marriage, When the Waiting Room is Empty, the Maasai Women Detective series, and so on. I mean, you're a prolific writer, and I salute you.
Thank
Can
you.
you tell us how you started writing?
I wish I knew. um, I'll take you a little bit back because I started writing when I was in secondary school, I can say. And I first published after high school. I published in local magazines. And then when I went to university, I still had a lot of interest in listening to stories and writing stories. So I published in an anthology that was coordinated by one of my professors, because I did literature as part of my studies at the university. And before I completed university, I had a chance to work with a national daily newspaper. So I've always had that interest to write. But then somewhere along the way, life came in, I stopped writing a bit. And then the idea came back again in 2016. Yeah.
Eileen, I have to say that that's probably what you're meant to do, because writing it doesn't come easy to us all. So this must be your calling. And it's so wonderful because you've written 9 contemporary novels in Africa. And when you think 9, some of us go through our lives without even being able to pen one write up, one creative writing piece, and you've written 9. How does that make you feel? Can you believe that this was you?
Eh, Sometimes I feel grateful that I have a chance to put these messages together, because this is partly, it's an amalgamation of events and issues that take place within our community, not necessarily to one person, but it's events. If somebody visited Africa, they would be able to encounter. So I'm grateful that I'm able to bring those issues together into a book for somebody to read. But then sometimes I get lost in the struggles of, I'm writing a book, I'm looking for editors, I'm looking for book designers, cover designers. So sometimes I end up getting lost in too much work
Yeah, of course.
before I get the product out, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Or when people read and they write back to me and they're like, oh, I read your book and I liked this and this. That's when I'm like, okay.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
it's pretty incredible. You've done well. You make us all proud. You're African. Your books are excellent quality. I
Thank you.
haven't read any. I saw what you posted on Facebook, the girl who left the village, and I thought, oh my goodness, I must get on
Okay.
top of this. And then I reached out to you. May I ask, um, who is your muse? How are you inspired? Are you just inspired by what happens politically in our societies, or you are inspired by a particular person? Could be your husband. I don't know what inspires you. That's my question.
I wish I could pinpoint one person. Actually, what I would like to say that it's most of the African women that I've encountered in my life as a girl and as a woman. As I mentioned earlier on, I have this interest of when I see people working on something or doing something, I tend to look at whatever they are doing with a critical eye. Why is so and so doing that? What could be motivating them to do that? What has stopped them from achieving the goal that they were after? So part of my motivation comes from my interest on people, society, communities, or families. I could be looking at a particular family whereby somebody else from outside might look at them and be like, oh, why is that child or man or woman behaving that way? Or they might just look at them and write them off. But for me, when I look at such people, maybe somebody is in a problem, I don't just look and see them like that's a bad person. I look at them and I'm like, oh, what could have caused them to react that way? So that has been my way of looking at people, looking at society, as far as I can remember. So that's why I said, even being in Canada, I have written 2 books looking at the people now from Africa who are in Canada, how they lead their life, especially the young people. It's because of what I've been seeing in society. And for those books, the main question I ask is, how do these young people engage in romantic relationships now that they are away from home?
I see. So you must also be a deep thinker. You imagine, you think through. I mean, I've got to ask you, they told me the story about the woman who did not finish university. She got pregnant. I'm from Nigeria. In Africa, that's a scandal. That's scandalous. And girls who get pregnant in school, not much happens to them pretty much because that's pretty much the end of their lives. They are unable to carry on going to school. If they are, it'd be hard to maybe go on to university to find work. And the girl, it's scandalous for the family, scandalous for everybody. So what happens in your book? How did you walk through that narrative of the teenage girl who got pregnant and she didn't finish university?
Okay, without revealing too much about the book, because I would like you and all the other listeners to go and read the book. It's titled The House Girl Becoming Angela. So she goes and finds a job as a house girl. That's where her story starts. But then she's not given up the idea of going to university because she had qualified to go to university. And even if she's working as a house girl, because of that motivation, she's unlike the others, she's a different type of house girl, and her employer gets to notice this. So the message that I'm trying to pass in that particular book is that, if you have a goal, even if you encounter challenges along the way, if you work hard, you can overcome the challenge and move on to achieve your goal, in whatever area that you are.
I like this a lot. I'm going to ask our audience, don't go away. We'll be back right after this short break. Welcome back to Ladies Corner with T. We've got Edmonton author Eileen Omosa talking to us about our books and why she writes. And I was just wondering, do you feel appreciated as a writer? Many people often say if you want to hide things from Black people, put it in the book. In your experience, do you think we read enough? Are we your primary audience?
It's hard for me to tell because I sell my books online as ebooks, and I also sell my books online as print books, and I have my books in a few bookstores and in the Edmonton Public Library. So because of that, I'm not able to tell who's been able to access my books or who is reading my books. The much or the little that I know is before March 2020, I used to sell my books at public events. And what I can say is that it's a mixture of people who bought copies of my books, people from different parts of the world. They were interested in the message. So at this stage, at this stage, I'm not able to say, if this particular group of people are the ones who are reading more of my books or this other group because of that. Because when somebody buys the book online or borrows it from the library, I don't get to know who is reading it. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. I totally get that. But do you think that Black people should read more? Do you think as a community we should generally read more? What are your thoughts about this?
What I can say is that I would like to see more of our people read more of our books. And what I mean by our books, it's not my books as such, but if they can read more of books written by Black people or people from Africa. So that especially for our children who've grown up away from Africa or away from home, it will give them a chance to learn something about where their parents or their grandparents came from. Because when we write books, when I write my books, because I grew up in Kenya, my settings is in Kenya or other countries of Africa, which means that by people reading the books, they get to learn something about Kenya, about Africa, or about African families. And I tend to think that if they read more of such books, then they will be able to understand where their parents or grandparents are coming from. Because one of the issues that we get, especially those of us who migrated to Canada when we were already adults, and if we have children here, one of the issues that we or challenges that come in between is that the children have grown up in a different culture from the one that we were brought up in. So sometimes you tell them something and they will look at you, like you've said something that is very strange. But if they are to read such books, then they will be able to see and understand, oh, this is where mom or this is where grandma comes from in terms of the practices and the setting. So it's one way for them to expand their perspectives about life will be if they read such books. And not only the people who come from Africa, but Canadians and other people from other different parts of the world, if they get to read these books, then it will give them a better idea so that when they meet with me and you, they are not just concluding based on maybe information that they got from online and deciding, oh, that is T is a Black woman, she must be this way or suffering or she's not gone to school. But if they read these books, then they'll be able to see, oh, actually in Africa, the girl child goes to school, the girl child goes to university, people come from decent homes, so that when people see you along the street, they know you are a substance by just looking at you instead of using the stereotypes that exist and looking at you and concluding, oh, this woman must be because she's African, she must be suffering. So that's why I would encourage people, both our people and people from the other countries, to read some of these books, because then they will understand the context where we are coming from.
No, you've said that very well. I cannot top that really.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Now I like clean contemporary romance. You write clean contemporary romance, but as a woman generally, do you sometimes get people tell you we want it just a bit more juicy? Or let me rephrase that. What does clean contemporary romance look like? Is it juicy enough for a mature woman like myself?
Yes and no. In clean romance, we don't open the bedroom door, or we don't open the sheets.
Okay.
There are no swear words, so that different people can read the
Yeah.
books without feeling, like, what type of book am I reading? Should I be hiding this book? So, yeah, because of that, my books have been read by people from 15 years and up.
Okay.
Yeah. When I used to sell books, people used to ask me that question. They are like, "Oh, I would like my daughter or my grandchild to go and read this book. Is it a good book for them to read?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, perfect. It's it's a clean book. I don't open the bedroom doors, so it's quite
Mm.
clean." Mhm.
I like when you say that we don't talk about what goes on beneath the sheets, and then my head is going crazy. What's happening underneath the sheets? I want to know. I want to see it. But you've also written about grandma food stories. It must be that your grandma has made a strong impression. So, what sort of meals did your grandma cook that inspired you to write so?
All sorts of nice food that, now that we mention food, I start thinking of of the type of foods that I miss because I'm far away from home. Yeah, I
Mm.
grew up, I was born in rural Kenya. So that's where we grew up in. My dad used to wake up, drive to town to go to work, but then come back, which means that we grew up next to our grandparents, because the setup in most communities within Africa is that relatives, grandparents have children, their children, when they marry, they are still within walking distance from one another. So we had our grandmother next door, 3-4 minutes walk from our house. And also, even my maternal grandmother was not far, it was 10 kilometers away. So we had a lot of interactions with them. And coming to Canada, I started wondering, how are the young people who are growing up, the children, because we had a chance almost every evening to listen to stories from our grandparents, or during the day when they are preparing food, we could be near there. The same thing happened with our parents. So I started wondering what's going to happen to our children and our grandchildren now that we are living far away from the extended family. That's why I started writing grandma food stories, where grandmother tells the children stories about the indigenous food, how the food is grown, how it's prepared, how it's consumed, and more so why we used to consume different types of foods. Because normally when I tell people, even my children, that food is medicine, sometimes I see them looking at me like, medicine is found at the doctor's place. So those are the kind of messages I would like to pass through those stories to children, that we don't just eat food to get satisfied. food is a way that communities come together. It's through food that we are able to share knowledge from one generation to the other. And through participating in growing or preparing food, it's a way of educating people, about what they are eating.
We have nearly run out of time. I'd like to get your
Oh,
thoughts on. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Now, the quest to empowerment comes through education and employment. The quest to empowerment comes through education and employment. Are these hard indices in Edmonton today? Do you see us Black people or us women generally getting empowered through education and employment in Edmonton today?
I can say to an extent, or based on what it was, the way it was supposed to be. Yes, education is supposed to empower us because it gives us skills through which we'll be able to go and get into a career. So to an extent, it does that, but from stories that I've heard from communities where I've done research or people that I interact with, and even from my own experience, we are yet to get there. People have gone to school, people have skills, people have experience, but still you find us, especially people coming from Africa, you still find us in jobs that we've not trained for. So in a way, we don't get that much of empowerment that education promised us.
I want to explore that further, but we are nearly out of time. This is Ladies Corner with T. Eileen, you have the final word after this short break. Don't go away. It's Eileen Omosa from Edmonton. Hey, welcome back to Ladies Corner. We have about 30 more seconds left on the show. Eileen, I want you to show us your books and tell our audience where they can find it. If you
So
can do this as quickly as you can. Mm-hmm.
yeah, those are some of my books, but they are quite a number. There are many, and for those who prefer to read e-copies, that's electronic copies. If you go to amazon.com, or if you go to eileenomosa.com, you'll be able to access e-copies of my books. Also, for print books, you can buy them from Amazon, or for those of you who are in the southern part of Edmonton, if you go to the Indigo Spirit bookstore at Southgate, you'll find my books. And if you are not ready to buy the books, if you go to the Edmonton Public Library, you'll be able to find copies of my books there. And if there is a title that you would like to read and it's not in the library, the system allows you to request for the book and the librarian will order the book for you.
This is Ladies Corner with Tia, and we've been chatting with Edmonton author Eileen Omosa. Eileen has written 9 contemporary novels. I need to lay my hands on at least 1 or 2 of them. I want to say thank you so much, Eileen, for joining us tonight and for sharing the depth of your knowledge. I know the time has quickly gone by. We are going to have you come on another show where we can explore through your eyes as a sociologist what goes on in our society, because your books are a testament to your exploration. We have an interview with Pastor Kindele tomorrow. We have a panel with Mary Thomas tomorrow at 6. You want to stay with Ladies Corner for incisive content every time. So till next time, thanks again, Eileen, for coming.
Thank you for having me. Keep reading the books.